The fog in your head when everything feels like too much. The pressure in your chest when you can't say what you feel. That knot in your stomach before a difficult conversation. What if those sensations aren't random? What if your body has been speaking to you in a language no one taught you to hear?
In the next 35 minutes, we're going to do something specific together. We'll study what your 7 chakras are, the centers that different traditions describe as regulators of your emotional states, your vitality, and your relationships with your family, your partner, your work, and even your relationship with money. We'll look at how the tantric tradition of India, traditional Chinese medicine, and the Japanese practice of Reiki mapped these centers in the human body over thousands of years, and how Western medicine has found hormonal and nervous structures in those same regions of the body, corresponding to the same map. We'll walk through all 7 centers, one by one. You'll see how to recognize when they're in balance and flow and when they're not, and what the traditions describe as the consequences of that imbalance. We'll explore how, in the tantric tradition, each chakra carries a polarity, a quality associated with the feminine and the masculine, and how this may reflect in your own energetic pattern. We'll see why, in these traditions, when one of these centers is out of balance, it can affect the flow of all the others. And you'll leave with something concrete for each of your chakras, a sound, and a position for your hands. Tools these traditions have used for millennia to meditate, focus, and begin working with these centers. You don't need to believe any of this yet. You just need to be here. Let's begin.
Have you ever noticed that certain emotions always seem to show up in the same part of your body? Fear in the pit of your stomach, grief in your chest, the words you couldn't say sitting right there in your throat. Your body has a geography, and for thousands of years, people have been mapping it.
In the tantric tradition of India, practitioners described 7 centers along the spine, each one associated with a different aspect of human experience, from survival to transcendence. They called these centers chakras, a Sanskrit word meaning wheel or disc, a point where something turns.
These are classically called chakras in the tantric tradition, and the term has become known throughout the world. But this wasn't the only tradition that noticed them. In traditional Chinese medicine, a parallel system describes the Jin Glue O, a network of channels through which vital energy is said to flow, with key concentration points along the body's center.
In the Japanese practice of Reiki, developed in the early 20th century, practitioners work with energy points that draw from both the Indian and Chinese systems, adapting and synthesizing what came before.
Not one tradition, several, separated by geography and centuries, and yet, again and again, they map the same points along the same axis of the human body.
We look at what these traditions observed, at what modern anatomy has found in the same places, and we'll let you notice what you recognize in your own body.
But first, there's a curious coincidence worth seeing. A Western psychologist in the 1940s, who never studied any of these traditions, described something remarkably similar. We'll get to him in a moment.
Western medicine doesn't use the word chakra. It doesn't describe energy centers or spiritual anatomy. But it does recognize something strikingly familiar. Along your spine, at roughly the same points these Eastern traditions describe, your body houses major nerve clusters and endocrine glands.
At the base, your adrenal glands, which govern your stress response, your survival system.
At the belly, your reproductive organs and the nerves that regulate gut feeling, what we sometimes call intuition, and what medicine calls the enteric nervous system.
At the solar plexus, the nerve bundle that controls your fight or flight response, the place where anxiety and determination both live.
At the heart, the cardiac plexus, which responds to emotion faster than your conscious mind can process it.
At the throat, your thyroid, which regulates your metabolism, your energy, your voice.
Behind your forehead, your pineal gland, the one some traditions associate with inner vision, and which modern science knows regulates your sleep cycles and circadian rhythm.
And at the crown, the cerebral cortex, the seat of awareness, thought, and perception.
You may have already noticed some version of this, that when you're overwhelmed, truly overwhelmed, you feel it in your gut before you think it in your mind. That grief lands in the chest before it becomes a word. That a throat tightens before a difficult truth gets spoken.
That's not metaphor. The body itself seems to agree with the map.
Let's walk through them. 7 centers, bottom to top. We'll go much deeper into each one during this series. For now, just notice which ones you feel drawn to, which ones make you pause.
1. Muladhara. In Sanskrit, mula means root, and adhara means support. The root of your existence, the foundation everything else stands on, base of your spine. This is survival, safety, the feeling of having ground beneath you.
2. Svadhisthana. Its Sanskrit name means one's own dwelling place, the seat where your being is established, the sacral center, just below your navel. Sensation, creativity, flow, the ability to feel pleasure and connect with others.
3. Manipura. The city of jewels, the lustrous gem at your center, the solar plexus, above your navel. Willpower, identity, the sense of knowing who you are and what you want.
4. Anahata. The unstruck sound, the vibration that arises without two things colliding. The heart, center of your chest. Love, empathy, forgiveness, the capacity to give and receive without keeping score.
5. Vishuddha. Especially pure, purification through expression. Your throat, truth, communication, the courage to say what needs to be said, and the wisdom to know when silence serves better.
6. Ajna. To perceive, to command, the center where inner authority meets clarity, the third eye, between your eyebrows. Perception, intuition, the ability to see beyond what is immediately visible.
7. Sahasrara. 1,000 petals, the lotus that opens at the crown, top of your head, awareness, presence, connection to something larger than yourself, however you understand that.
7 points. 1 vertical axis. From the most basic human need to the most expensive human capacity. And there's a reason we start at the bottom.
In the 1940s, thousands of years after these Eastern traditions were first documented, the American psychologist Abraham Maslow proposed something remarkably similar. He described human needs as a hierarchy, a pyramid. At the base, survival, food, shelter, safety. Without these, nothing else matters.
Above that, belonging, connection, intimacy, the need to feel that you are not alone.
Then, recognition, identity, confidence, the need to know that who you are has value.
And at the top, self-realization, creativity, meaning, the capacity to become fully yourself.
Maslow never studied chakras. The tantric practitioners never read Maslow.
And yet, the progression is almost identical.
Survival first.
Then sensation and connection.
Then identity and power.
Then love.
Then expression.
Then perception.
Then awareness and presence.
You cannot reach for meaning when you don't feel safe.
You cannot love freely when you don't know who you are.
You cannot express your truth when your heart is closed.
Each level depends on the one below it.
And this is why, when one of these centers is blocked, everything above it is affected.
If your root is unstable, if you carry fear, scarcity, or a feeling of not being safe in the world, that instability doesn't stay at the bottom. It rises. It touches your ability to feel pleasure, to assert yourself, to love, to speak, to see clearly. The work begins at the base, not because the root is the most important, but because it is the foundation everything else stands on.
There is one more layer to this system that most explanations skip. In the tantric tradition, 2 channels of energy were said to weave along the spine. One lunar, cool, receptive, associated with the feminine.
One solar, warm, active, associated with the masculine.
These channels were called Ida and Pingala. When you map them to the 7 chakras, something becomes visible. The centers alternate.
One carries an outward, active quality.
The next carries an inward, receptive quality. One masculine, one feminine. One masculine, one feminine.
The root, survival, stability, structure, outward, active.
The sacral, sensation, feeling, flow. Inward, receptive.
The solar plexus, will, direction, identity, outward again.
The heart, empathy, connection, love, inward.
The throat, expression, assertion, voice, outward.
The third eye, intuition, perception, inner knowing, inward. And the crown, beyond both.
You may have already felt some version of this, that certain centers simply make sense to you, that others feel foreign, like working against your own grain, like speaking a language you understand, but were never quite taught to speak fluently.
Practitioners in the Western chakra tradition have observed that women tend to feel more naturally at home in the even centers: sacral, heart, third eye. Not because they lack the others, but because those centers speak a language the feminine body already knows. Sensation, connection, inner knowing. This is not about limitation. It is about where your natural current runs.
That is what this series is for. We start at the root, the center that for many women is the most unfamiliar, the most needed, and the most powerful to reclaim.
Now let's feel them, not just name them. For each center, we'll move through what it feels like when it's flowing and what it feels like when it's not. You might recognize yourself in some of these, more than one. That's the point. Each of these centers will have its own dedicated session in this series. We'll go much deeper there. For now, just notice which ones speak to you.
Root chakra, Muladhara. When your root is balanced, you might notice a quiet sense of steadiness, a feeling that you can handle what comes. Your body feels grounded, not tense, not braced, just present. You sleep without dread, you wake without panic. When it's unbalanced, you might feel a constant low hum of anxiety, a sense that something is about to go wrong, even when nothing is. Tension in your legs and lower back, money feeling scarce even when it isn't. Feeling unsafe in spaces that are, by any measure, safe. You might recognize this as that feeling of never quite landing, as if the ground beneath you could shift at any moment.
Sacral chakra, Svadhisthana. When your sacral center is balanced, you feel things fully. Pleasure is available to you, not as indulgence, but as information. Your senses are alert but not jumpy, not on guard. Creativity flows without forcing. You connect with others from genuine feeling, not from performance. When it's unbalanced, you might feel numb, or the opposite, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion you can't regulate. Envy might appear, guilt around pleasure, a sense of being disconnected from your own body, as if you're watching your life from behind glass. You might recognize this as that feeling of wanting something you can't name.
Solar plexus chakra, Manipura. When your solar plexus is balanced, you know who you are. Not in an arrogant way, in a settled way. Decisions feel possible. You can say no without guilt, and yes without anxiety. You have a sense of direction, even if the path isn't entirely clear. When it's unbalanced, you might feel stuck, indecisive, either controlling everything or giving your will away entirely. Anger sitting just below the surface, not at anyone in particular, but at the feeling of powerlessness itself. You might recognize this as that burning sensation in your stomach when someone crosses a boundary you didn't know how to name.
Heart chakra, Anahata. When your heart center is balanced, love doesn't feel like a transaction. You give without keeping score. You receive without suspicion. Empathy comes naturally, but doesn't drain you. Forgiveness of others and of yourself feels possible, even when it's slow. When it's unbalanced, you might notice walls, a reluctance to trust, a pattern of giving too much and then pulling back completely, grief that doesn't move, a feeling of being fundamentally alone, even in company. You might recognize this as that ache in your chest that has nothing to do with your heart and everything to do with your heart.
Throat chakra, Vishuddha. When your throat is balanced, you speak clearly, not loudly, clearly. You say what you mean. You listen without already planning your response. Your voice, your actual physical voice, feels steady and available to you. When it's unbalanced, you might swallow your words. Or the opposite, speak compulsively, filling silence because silence feels dangerous. A tightness before difficult conversations. A sense that no one really hears you, no matter how many times you say it. You might recognize this as that lump in your throat when you know exactly what you need to say and can't.
Third eye chakra, Ajna. When your third eye is balanced, you see clearly, not in a mystical sense, but in a practical one. You read situations accurately. You trust your own perception. You can tell the difference between what you fear and what is actually happening. Overthinking quiets down. When it's unbalanced, you might live inside your head. Paralysis by analysis. Difficulty distinguishing intuition from anxiety. Mental fog, or the opposite, a mind that won't stop running, cataloging, predicting, preparing for everything that hasn't happened yet. You might recognize this as that feeling of knowing something is off and not being able to name what.
Crown chakra, Sahasrara. When your crown is balanced, you feel connected to something. It doesn't need a name. It might be nature, the universe, God, the sense that your life has a thread running through it, even when the thread isn't visible. You feel present, aware, here. When it's unbalanced, you might feel disconnected, spiritually dry, moving through the motions without meaning. Or the opposite, so caught in spiritual seeking that daily life feels irrelevant, beneath you, not enough. You might recognize this as that quiet ache of, there must be more than this. Not as greed, but as a genuine signal from somewhere you haven't been able to locate yet.
Each of these centers has a traditional sound, a mantra, and a hand position, a mudra, associated with it in tantric and yogic practice. These are tools. They require no belief. They're for you to use, to explore, and then notice what your body does with them. That's all. Let's move through them. One breath with each.
Meditation, mantra, and mudra for the root chakra. Bring your hands to your knees. Touch the tips of your thumbs and index fingers together. Let the other fingers rest straight. Keep your arms easy, not rigid. Feel the contact of your hands against your knees. The weight, the warmth. Take a breath in, and on the exhale, let the sound extend. Lam. Let it be long. Let it dissolve slowly. If you'd like, behind your closed eyes, let the color red come. Soft, deep, unhurried. Notice your lower body, your legs, the base of your spine, whatever is there.
Meditation, mantra, and mudra for the sacral chakra. Bring your hands to your lap. Place your right palm on top of your left, both facing upward. Let your thumbs touch at their tips. Not a tight grip, just rest. Breathe in. And on the exhale, let the sound extend. Vam. Behind your closed eyes, if you'd like, orange. Warm, low, fluid. Notice the belly, the hips. Any warmth or movement there.
Meditation, mantra, and mudra for the solar plexus chakra. Bring your hands to the space between your heart and your stomach. Fingers pointing away from you, straight, both hands together, and cross your thumbs over each other. Let the hands hold their shape without effort. Breathe in, and on the exhale, Vra. Long, yellow, like a low flame. Notice the center of your body, the place where decisions live, the place where certainty either is or isn't.
Meditation, mantra, and mudra for the heart chakra. Place your left hand on your left knee, palm facing down. Bring your right hand to the center of your chest, and on both hands, touch the tips of your thumbs and index fingers together. 2 circles, one at your knee, one at your heart. Breathe in, and on the exhale, Ya. Long and soft, green, the kind that lives in old leaves, in lush ancient forests. Stay with whatever arises. You don't need to do anything with it.
Meditation, mantra, and mudra for the throat chakra. Bring your hands in front of your stomach. Interlace your fingers and let your thumb tips touch. Hold the position easily without tension. Breathe in, and on the exhale, let the sound move through your throat without forcing it. Let it find its own volume. Sky blue, the specific blue of a morning sky in summer. Notice if the sound wants to be quieter or louder than you expected. Either is information.
Meditation, mantra, and mudra for the third eye chakra. You may have seen this mantra written both ways. A-U-M, Om, or O-M, Om. They are the same sound. The 3 letters are a map. A opens at the back of the throat. U moves forward through the mouth. M closes at the lips. Together, they become what you already know. Bring your hands to your chest, thumbs resting at your sternum. Let the tips of your thumbs and middle fingers touch. Let your other fingers bend gently at the knuckles and rest against each other. A contained shape, held, not gripped. Breathe in, and on the exhale, let this sound open and travel its full distance. The A wide, the U rounding, the M long. Let it extend until your breath is spent, until there is nothing left to give it. Behind your closed eyes, indigo, deep, interior, the color that lives behind darkness. Notice the space between your eyebrows, behind your forehead, behind your eyes. You don't need to find anything there. Just notice if something is already present.
Meditation and mudra for the crown chakra. Bring your hands in front of your stomach. Cross your fingers together and let your little fingers meet at their tips and point upward. A single upward line from the interlace. Or rest your hands in your lap. Either is right. Breathe in. And on the exhale, let the breath go without sound. No mantra, no shape for the mouth to make, just the exhale, and then the quiet that follows it. Violet, or white, or nothing, whatever arises without your asking. The crown doesn't require sound. It requires you to stop filling the space.
You don't need to do all 7 right now. If one of the centers we described felt familiar, if one of those descriptions made you pause and think, yes, that, start there. One sound, one hand position, one breath. Notice what your body does.
Over the coming weeks, we're going to work through each of these centers, one at a time, starting at the root, starting at survival. Each session will include 3 things: a guided meditation designed for that specific center, a ritual you can do at home with simple materials, nothing expensive, nothing hard to find, and something you shall create with your own hands, an object that anchors the work into your body and your daily life, something you can carry, wear, or place somewhere you'll see it, something that reminds your nervous system of what you practiced without needing words. We start at the root. We start with survival, safety, and grounding. We start with a red thread.
If this resonated with you, subscribe and you'll have the first session when it arrives. And if you know someone who needed to hear this today, send it to her.
Take what you recognized. Leave what you didn't. We'll be here.